Hello everyone and welcome back to the Warwick F1 show, and it's race week again. From Barcelona in Spain we travel through France and ignore it because there's no French Grand Prix, and then we travel probably through Switzerland and ignore it because they still detest motor racing and have a ban there, but only for a week because that 70-year ban on motor racing is being lifted in Switzerland in the coming days, which is exciting. And then we finally make it into Austria, which is where the race is this weekend, into the Styrian Mountains, but Germany is still within sight, and we ignore that too because Hockenheim was poor, and I don't know about Nürburgring, but that's not coming back anytime soon. Anyway, we made it to the Red Bull Ring, which is where we are racing this weekend, and we're going to preview it in this episode of the Warwick F1 show. I'm your host, Daniel, and I am joined by my co-hosts, Callum and Lucy, and also we are joined by our guest, Alex, as well. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining me for this episode. Let's get straight into who we see kind of challenging at the front this weekend, the pecking order that we think is going to unfold this weekend. Callum, do you see Lewis Hamilton, after the resurgence that he had in Barcelona, it has to be said, do you see him as the biggest threat to Kimi Antonelli, who still has that kind of vice grip on the championship for this weekend at least?
Yeah, I think the only thing that would make me question that, I think, is whether the Ferrari car is there and it has the pace that Hamilton can use to deliver in that race. Because I think Hamilton is in the form of Hamilton of old. Clearly, he's had 2 podiums and a win, so he's on flying form, probably the best form that out of any driver on the grid at the moment. And he's looking so confident in that Ferrari car. So I think it's just a question of whether or not the Ferrari can maintain its pace as it did in Barcelona, which is something yet to be seen. We can obviously speculate on that. But I think he probably is at this point the best contender to Antonelli. He is second place in the championship, and Russell, as we've covered in previous years, really hasn't been able to get going in any sort of race this season, to be honest, ever since Australia. So I think it is going to be between Hamilton and Antonelli, as my predictions will allude to a bit later on. I think Antonelli will be strong. I know he crashed here last year, but something we've learned is that last year does not give us any information about how Antonelli is going to be, because he's largely exceeded what he was able to do last year. And so I think it's going to be a question of whether or not the Ferrari car is there and has the pace to challenge Mercedes. If it is, then Hamilton could be favourite or just one of the favourites for a win around Austria.
Absolutely, yes. Of course, for anyone who doesn't remember, last year, Kimi Antonelli drove into the side of Max Verstappen under braking for turn 3, I think, on the first lap, out of control, took them both out of the race. But yeah, like you said, I mean, last year in Monaco, for example, he crashed in qualifying, and this year he was on pole position and won the race at a canter. So yeah, he's taken a lot of steps up this year. Lucy, your thoughts on just where Ferrari are going to be this weekend in general, and Lewis Hamilton's kind of abilities? Because I want to say Austria hasn't been his happy hunting ground necessarily in the past. It's not one of his most successful circuits, but he just seems to be on a roll at the moment. He's had many consecutive podiums, I want to say at least 3. So surely you're banking on him to get at least another one this weekend.
Yeah, I think that usually I would say that Barcelona and Austria are very different circuits. So I'd usually say that success in Barcelona doesn't necessarily translate over to success at Austria. They kind of favour quite different car characteristics in my professional engineering experience, by which I mean mainly vibes and results from previous years. And were it not for the fact that Hamilton has looked strong now at Barcelona, Monaco and Canada, which are also fairly different circuits, I'm going to say that he will probably be in, like Callum said, he's been on fantastic form. He's clearly riding kind of a big wave of confidence, and also seems to have the whole of Ferrari behind him right now. There was, to be honest, there was a little bit at the start of the season where I wondered if Ferrari were able to challenge Mercedes, whether they would end up having problems if both Hamilton and Leclerc were able to do it, because kind of if Hamilton was in better form, would they still kind of feel that they should be prioritizing Leclerc because he's like sold his soul to Ferrari? But because Leclerc's car doesn't seem to want to reach the finish line, I don't think that's a problem anymore. But I would say also Austria is not his happy hunting ground, but Monaco hasn't really been historically either. Like, he's succeeded in Monaco before. This isn't me saying, oh my God, Hamilton's so bad at Monaco or anything like that. No. But compared to a track, I wasn't surprised that he did well in Canada. You know, it's where he got his first race. It's always been a circuit he's performed well at. Wasn't really surprised he performed well in Barcelona. That's also always been a good circuit for him in the past. But Monaco has not been a particular source of strength for him usually. And yet he had a very solid second place. And with the restarts, we kind of were thinking, oh, is there a chance that he might be able to jump Antonelli off the line and get into P1? So I would say that definitely don't count him out, even if it's maybe not been his favourite circuit in the past, because a bit like Antonelli, its kind of previous form doesn't really seem to be dictating the performance in this year's championship that much. It doesn't, you know, we've seen Russell struggle at tracks where kind of historically they would have been sort of like his good tracks, and we've alternatively seen kind of Hamilton and Antonelli perform well at tracks where, you know, even for Antonelli in the junior years where they've not been his strongest venues. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them both up fighting kind of for the win. Again, it very much depends on what pace Ferrari can come with. They've not brought any upgrades/downgrades this week, which bodes well, I think. But yeah, it is an unknown, but I don't think we can. It's an unknown because I don't think we can draw too much from how did they go last year. Also, you know, Antonelli crashed out last year, but let's be honest, that Red Bull's not going to be qualifying high enough up the field for Verstappen to be a threat to Antonelli into turn one this year. So
yeah, Lucy, you mentioned that that the Austria circuit might be quite different compared to Barcelona. I think that as we go on throughout more races, what's good for Ferrari, or what's probably quite promising for them, is that not only is the car good, but it's good at many different types of circuits. Like, you know, we've had Monaco, Barcelona, and Austria, three very different types of circuits, lots of different speeds of corners, differences in the amount of straights, like with Austria, or the amount of corners like with Monaco. And so, unlike what we've seen in previous years, where Ferrari just happened to be at the front for maybe one or two races a year, or just a few races a year, just picking up some wins, while another team like Mercedes or Red Bull really dominate throughout the rest of the season. Ferrari, it may be this. We might be starting to see signs of a trend where maybe they actually can be a bit more consistent, even across many different types of circuits, which for Ferrari will be promising. The only problem for that is, I mean, Antonelli has already got this 41-point lead as it stands over Hamilton in the championship, which, even if you're Lewis Hamilton, it's not an easy thing to recover from. And especially as we get later on into the season, where we've got the cars becoming more reliable, it means that it's going to become much, much harder to make up that deficit, especially when, at least as we see for the moment, Antonelli doesn't seem like he's going to be majorly dropping off like, say, Piastri did last year. He may do. I don't think he will, personally, but that's yet to be seen. But it's, even if the Ferrari does seem very dominant, it's still going to be really challenging to try and make up that deficit. And I still don't think we'll be able to talk about any sort of kind of proper championship fight between those two until Hamilton can make some serious progress in reducing that gap.
I agree with Callum, but I also think one thing when comparing this year with last year, but also with just kind of the previous set of regulations, I'm thinking particularly the kind of 2022 onward set of regs rather than the previous era, because I kind of only started watching halfway through that previous era, so I don't know what it was like when, say, the 2014 engines came in. But compared to, say, Verstappen having a kind of real mountain to climb last year, or even Norris having a big mountain to climb last year as well, kind of at about sort of the halfway point of the season, is that reliability is a much bigger thing this year, and it seems to be affecting the big teams as well. You know, reliability is always a thing, but it seems like it's kind of always either been concentrated in one engine manufacturer or in kind of the lower down teams of an engine manufacturer. You know, it's not usually been, you know, last year's Mercedes was kind of different because it felt like Kimi Antonelli had a mechanical DNF about every 10 minutes. But most of the time, it's not the Mercedes, the McLarens that are having the mechanical issues. It's the it was kind of the Aston Martins and the Williams who were having mechanical problems. And even those were quite rare. Whereas this year, kind of the mechanical gremlins seem to be striking all manufacturers. I mean, particularly Aston Martin, but what did they really expect? And also seems to be striking all of the teams across the grid, So it's very possible for Hamilton to close up a lot of ground to Antonelli in the championship, not necessarily by ridiculously outdriving him or by Ferrari having a much faster car, but simply through Mercedes having mechanical troubles. It's now kind of 3 weekends in a row in which they've had some sort of problem. I think they mentioned they had some sort of mechanical issue in Monaco, but I don't know what that was. And obviously we had Canada. Or they might have just been saying it to cover up for the fact that Russell did really badly and to make him feel better. But, I've got nothing but their word to take them at. And so if Mercedes, particularly if Antonelli, has another mechanical DNF, he was on for P2, which means that Hamilton would have only closed 7 points in the championship when he ended up closing 25. So it's very possible to make up a lot of ground quickly, not actually by having a really good car, but just by having almost kind of through luck or through good reliability. Rare, I'm talking about that in Ferrari, but it's very, I know you mentioned kind of the late 1980s last time. It's very kind of early 1980s in which you saw cars like the Renault, which were really fast and really dominant, but would basically never win any championships because their reliability was trash. And so it's not unreasonable to think that something like that could play a role here, where Ferrari either can concentrate all of their reliability issues onto Charles Leclerc, or if they just have fewer altogether, that he might be able to close down some ground on Antonelli just by virtue of that.
Yeah, of course, we have seen it before where championships have been decided by reliability issues. Probably famously in most recent history would be 2016, of course, when Lewis Hamilton had that engine failure, and I believe it was Malaysia which handed a lot of points to his rival Nico Rosberg. And yeah, I think it is important that Ferrari seem to have fewer reliability issues than Mercedes this year. That's something they can capitalize on. I wouldn't be surprised if Charles Leclerc exclusively started having them, because that just seems to be his luck as a driver as well. But it's certainly something that seems to be having quite an impact on the championship standings. Okay, Callum mentioned a short while ago the sort of track characteristics and how they differ to Barcelona. Alex, I want to get your take on what that means for the quality of racing that we're going to see this weekend, and also who you think that kind of favours in who's gone well in Austria in the past. Obviously, Charles Leclerc has won here before. Do you think he can have a little bounce back? And your sort of expectations for racing this weekend?
I mean, I do feel like, in terms of Mercedes, I feel like they would get back to sort of being dominant, because I think Barcelona was sort of a one-off Ferrari track. I mean, Ferrari were very, very good at this track, in previous years, but I just think that the car for the Mercedes is just a bit too dominant. So I think it will be a Mercedes win.
A Mercedes win. Okay. Well, I don't know why I was kind of surprised to hear that. Maybe surprised at the certainty with which you said it, given what we've seen last race, especially where Hamilton won by 20 seconds. But a Mercedes bounce back is certainly possible, I feel.
We shouldn't forget as well, I think, that it was, even though Hamilton did have a very good performance, and he's been performing for very good for the past few races, that it was a lucky virtual safety car that came out and ultimately handed him the very dominant win that he had, which was something like around 20 seconds to the last driver, and Antonelli DNF'd from reliability through no fault of his own. So you never know, if that safety car didn't come out, or if that VSC didn't come out and Antonelli didn't get that DNF, then maybe Antonelli would have won that race as well. We don't know. I think it would have been very close between them. I still think Hamilton might have just won, but it definitely would have been a lot closer. Now, obviously, as we've discussed, reliability, yes, that is just a part of racing in the VSC. That is just a part of racing. But at the same time, I think that because of those factors, we shouldn't necessarily count out Mercedes from being there. And I guess at least it's still Mercedes being the favourites, I would say, for this race win, perhaps.
Yeah, favourites indeed. We haven't spoken much about McLaren. They've kind of been in a difficult spot as of late. Lando Norris was pretty keen on the back of the Mercedes, though, in Barcelona. We saw him kind of keep pace with them, and we've seen at times McLaren challenging for the win this season. Lucy, McLaren have been difficult to pinpoint this season. Is that kind of what you make of it as well, and what the individual drivers have been up to as well, with Norris seeming to be ahead of Oscar Piastri, certainly in the most recent races that we've seen?
Yeah, I think McLaren, to be honest, have left it kind of too late to now probably begin with a championship charge. I know earlier we were maybe talking about that. I don't think they can do that now. Sorry, Callum. But this is what I've been living with for the past 7 years as a Williams fan. So
It's all good. It's all good. No, I agree with it.
You got 2 championships, okay? It's fine. But Austria has been a good circuit for McLaren in the past. 2024 was looking good for them until Verstappen and Norris decided to have a little coming together. And then 2025 was really good for Norris, and 2020 was really good for Norris, and I think 2021 was really good for him, and 2022 I think was fairly good, even though their car wasn't that great. So it has been a circuit that McLaren have historically favoured. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them up there again, to be able to put pressure on the top teams. Maybe even, if there's some lucky retirements, some lucky strategy calls, maybe to get like a podium or maybe even a win, although I think that's very unlikely. It would kind of have to come about because of, say, a safety car really towards the end of the race. But it could happen, you never know. So, but to be honest with McLaren, they are a bit in no man's land, because they are, at least most of the time, a step better than Red Bull. They are kind of a step above them, but they're also still, I think, most of the time a fair way behind Ferrari and Mercedes, which is kind of, Ferrari also still a little bit behind Mercedes, but I'm confident enough to put them as like a group, the sort of Ferrari and Mercedes rather than Mercedes then Ferrari. A bit like how, kind of sometimes you'll get sort of a midfield team who's sort of just in no man's land in 5th place. McLaren are kind of that way, but in 3rd place. So their pace seems to fluctuate from weekend to weekend, as does the ability of their car to turn on. So either of those could be a factor. But I mean, and also it could be an exciting weekend for McLaren, because 2 race weekends later, we're still trying to work out who the hell got P3 in Monaco, because now that's been reviewed. So maybe Gasly will get his podium on disinstated, uninstated. The reinstation of Gasly's podium will be reversed, and so then they'll shuffle back up, and Piastri will be a bit higher up again. Who knows? I don't know. Listen, I don't understand Monaco. Why are we still talking about it? It's been like 2 weekends. Please, please.
Once we know the proper result, we'll re-upload the Monaco review and make discuss the actual result as it happened. But yes, it's very annoying that we're still kind of debating this after a whole nother race weekend.
But so yeah, I think McLaren are unpredictable. I wouldn't be surprised if they do well. But equally, the way they've been fluctuating this season, I also wouldn't be surprised if it just kind of starts badly and goes downhill, because it seems like that's also very liable to happen.
I think I definitely agree with Lucy in what you said, which is no man's land, and I completely agree with that. McLaren have, even if they do favour this circuit, I really can't see them mounting any sort of charge on. I was going to say the Ferraris, more likely Hamilton at this stage, let's be honest. And I was going to say the Mercedes, but more likely Antonelli at this stage, let's be honest. So I don't think they'll get anywhere near that. I anticipate them to be in a very lonely 3rd place. So perhaps a chance at a podium for Norris. I think that's what they should be aiming for at this particular Grand Prix this weekend. And yeah, maybe if they can if they can upgrade a bit more, then maybe they can bring themselves closer to Ferrari and Mercedes. But I really think we're past the point of talking about any sort of title charge or any sort of championship contention. I think that is any title challenge to Mercedes firmly now lies in the responsibility of Ferrari, if anyone, which hopefully it doesn't become dominant for Mercedes again. It's good that we might have someone else even in the conversation like Lewis Hamilton. But yeah, I think a podium is what McLaren will be aiming for at this stage, which again, as a McLaren fan, is very very sad to say, but unfortunately that just is where the car is now, and no amount of driving from Norris or Piastri is going to, or apart from if there's some like really good luck for them or anything like that, but like fortunate safety cars or whatever. But I think it would be like I say, a podium at best for them is what they should be aiming for.
Yeah, of course. It seems like their luck's gone the opposite way this season, to be honest. So I'm not sure they're going to be in for much luck this weekend, but that could obviously change. Well put. Let's see now if we've completely contradicted ourselves and what we've said in the rest of this episode by going into our predictions for this weekend. Let's start with Alex. If we could, please run us through your pole position and top 5 for the Austrian Grand Prix.
So, first of all, I have put in pole position, I would probably say Kimi Antonelli, because I feel like, he's sort of had like a reset in the fact that the 5-week streak has been broken. 5-race-week streak of wins has been broken. So I do think Antonelli would be on top and he will get first place. However, in second position and third position, I've put both of the Ferraris. Because, of course, even though George Russell has the momentum to like sort of swing back, I do not think that I still think that his let's say he beat Antonelli on the racetrack, then I think the momentum would have shifted to him. But I don't think that actually happened because Antonelli had the mechanical DNF. So I still think Russell would be behind Antonelli. And I would perhaps put a person like Russell in P5. And then in fourth place, I would probably go for a McLaren. So I would say Piastri, because I think he's had the better season and been like the stronger driver. So I would say that. So 1 to 5 is Antonelli, Hamilton, Leclerc. I feel like Leclerc is going to lock in because like he's had loads of problems last week, and if he doesn't lock in, like let's say he has another DNF, I do think his seat at Ferrari might be under pressure by Ollie Behrman. I mean, I know that Leclerc, it's more likely to be Hamilton that will be kicked out by Behrman, but I'm just saying this as a fact that Leclerc, if he doesn't lock in, then the Ferrari bosses will be really mad at him. So I think Leclerc will actually get a podium because his luck has been pretty bad. And so I'll go for Antonelli, Hamilton, Leclerc, Piastri, and Russell. And Verstappen as probably his 7th or 8th place.
I was just going to say, Alex, so you mentioned Behrman replacing Leclerc, which is not something we have talked about at all, but I find this very interesting and I want to just, sorry for interjecting, but I just want to ask you, Alex, you mentioned about this. How long do you think it's going to be until Leclerc is either kicked out to be replaced by Behrman or seriously under pressure as a result of his performances? I know Leclerc's performances have been very bad, but I don't know. I feel like it would be very strange for Ferrari to put Leclerc under any sort of pressure, and also for him to be kicked out of his seat when he is the driver that they've put so much time and money and effort towards. So, what's your take on that?
I mean, perhaps it won't be a 2027 thing, and it might be a 2028 thing. As in, if Leclerc underperforms both in the 2026 and 2027 seasons, then I think Leclerc's seat is under pressure. For 2027, I think Ferrari will give him another chance. But let's say Leclerc finishes 7th in the championship when he has the second best car. If Leclerc pulls a Perez 2024, then yeah, he might be replaced. But elsewhere, if he does decently, I do think he'll keep his seat because Hamilton might retire. But if Hamilton pulls an Alonso, then that might be worse for Leclerc. As in, a 42, 43-year-old Hamilton is beating a 28, 29-year-old Leclerc. Then of course that's going to be a problem, and it might scratch the heads of the Ferrari bosses thinking, oh, Behrman's a great driver, where should we put him in the team? And it could be a situation where both Leclerc is bad and Hamilton retires, so the Ferrari pairing could be Behrman and another new gen, or either new gen or an old driver, but I have no idea. So I have nothing further to comment.
Yeah, it's an interesting possibility. I guess I hadn't really considered it. I doubt Ferrari would ever consider Charles Leclerc to sort of overrated, or that they have overrated him at all in his years with the team. It's always seemed like it's been the team's failing a lot of the time. That's been the reason he hasn't won. Obviously, he's had his fair share of mistakes, but obviously, we were pretty harsh on him in the Barcelona review, and I think fairly so. He's made a few crucial mistakes this season, but I don't see it getting to the point where they consider replacing him with Behrman just yet. I think Ferrari are probably very happy with their lineup and unwilling to change it in the near future. And I think the fact that Hamilton at his age is beating a 28, 29-year-old Charles Leclerc probably says more about Hamilton than it does about Charles Leclerc right now, I'd say.
I should say as well, Leclerc is still fourth in the championship, which is, I think, where you would kind of expect him to be, given that Ferrari are the second best team. Well, that's kind of where you'd want him at a minimum. But that is only 2 points, interesting, behind Lando Norris. So it is quite tight in the positions that Leclerc and Norris are in. So even though he is currently in fourth position, you'd think it would start to feel quite strange, I think, if he got overtaken by one or both of the McLarens in the driver's standings. But I do agree with Alex. I think even though Leclerc will not be liking his performances, and it's absolutely not up to standard for Ferrari or for himself, absolutely, I'm sure he'll be feeling like that he should be doing better. I don't think there's any talk about him really moving anytime soon.
And one more thing, Alex, you mentioned that you think Piastri has been the better performing driver than Norris this season, which I think is interesting. In my head, it's sort of Piastri was better for the first 3 races or thereabouts, and then Norris kind of stepped up a bit. What's sort of caught your eye about Piastri this season? What's sort of so impressive to you?
I believe that, since Lando only managed to get a podium in Barca, and that he didn't manage to podium for any other races. I feel like, in terms of Lando's P3 that he got, I feel like sort of Piastri could have been a race winner this year had the strategy would have been a bit better and that sort of thing. I feel like in terms of the drivers who have been closest to a race win, I feel like Piastri was much closer than Norris. Norris, I don't really think that we could categorize Norris as being a legitimate contender for P1 or P2. I feel like his P3 in Barca was the best result that he could have had.
Daniel, you said that Piastri was better in the first few races. Are we forgetting that neither of them started in China, and Piastri crashed on the formation lap in Australia?
I was only thinking about round 3, in which he very nearly won. Not Australia.
Fair enough.
And obviously China's difficult to measure.
Yes, yeah.
But China's difficult to measure, but Piastri has usually been strong in China. Who qualified better for China?
Piastri was out qualifying Norris in all of the first few races.
Yeah.
Which I took into account as well.
And also, you have to account for being cursed at your home Grand Prix, Callum. That's just a universal thing. Why I think
Norris has won at Silverstone, so what's going on there?
Yeah, but maybe he's going to DNF this year.
Right, not that we're hoping for it or anything.
Well, the way it's been going.
The Australia curse is it's been going.
It is real.
So it is real. It is real.
I'd argue that Lando Norris was very close to a win in Miami when he was undercut by Antonelli, because he was in the lead, but he was undercut by Antonelli in the Mercedes, which meant he ended up in second place. So that, I think, was probably where Norris got closest to a win, and has since been beating Piastri on the regular. So that's why I'd argue that he's been the better driver. But we need to move on. Callum, please hit us with your poll on top 5.
Yes, of course. I will. So for pole, I'm actually going to go with Russell, and that's because I think, the classic Mr. Saturday. I do think that over 1 lap pace, he really does stand a chance. But then I've gone with an Antonelli win, as I just think that the race pace from Antonelli and his performances on the Sunday have just been they've completely outclassed in compared to Russell. So I think he's going to get the win. Hamilton's going to get second. I do think Hamilton will be up there and have somewhat of a challenge for the win, even if he doesn't actually get it. Russell will round out the podium, meaning he drops ultimately 2 places from his starting position of first. I've then gone with Lando Norris just outside the podium. I know we said how him and Piastri McLaren were in kind of land of their own in P3, and I don't really anticipate Leclerc doing too much either with the form that he's on. So I think that Norris could just get outside of the podium. And then for P5, I am going to take a bit of a risk perhaps and go with Max Verstappen, as I think that if the Red Bull car can even if it can just get going, it doesn't have to be like the 4th fastest. It can be nowhere, and Verstappen will somehow get a good result out of it when it's at the Red Bull ring. So I think that I think Verstappen might be capable of getting very high up in this race, even though the Red Bull car is not performing too well. So as long as his engine doesn't blow up at any point in the race, I think he could get a good result.
And so long as he doesn't get taken out on the first lap by Antonelli.
That is true as well. But Antonelli, as we said, Antonelli will be ahead of him at this point, so there'll be no crash with Antonelli, and therefore Verstappen will last for the entire race.
You'd hope he'd be ahead for Antonelli's sake, certainly. Lucy, your predictions, please.
Yeah, so wait, I have a question. Does the Antonelli rule still apply?
This rule being where we get only 1 point if we predict Antonelli in pole or P1 and it comes in. That applies for this weekend, but we can consider a revision for Silverstone.
Hang on. I did not know anything about this when I made my predictions.
You should have asked more questions, Callum. Read the question.
No, I did not know this.
Your fault.
I have to it.
You were absent in the episode where we made this rule, so
but not for the review episode.
It's fine. I'll make
would you like?
points elsewhere. It's fine.
Would you like to change your result, your predictions, Callum?
No. They're correct. So I'm gonna stay with
it. You like it, absolutely. Lucy, yes, they do apply for this weekend.
Fabulous, thank you. I'm so glad to clarify because I take initiative.
I mean, it's easy to clarify when you've been on the episode where it's actually introduced. So
okay. It's easy to know the rules when you've been content creation officer before.
Oh dear! I'd never make such a rule.
Should have seen it coming.
No. I've also gone Russell for pole position. In part, this is because I would like the chance of getting 3 points, but also I kind of agree with Callum. I think there's the chance that he is. It's kind of, is this me basing his performance almost entirely off of his 3 years at Williams and therefore assuming he's going to do really good in qualifying despite most evidence to the contrary? Yes. However, I don't care. So he's on pole position now. Then P1, I've said Hamilton. This is kind of out of vibes more than anything else. I don't really know what I wrote down here. I just wrote down some names on a sheet and I'm hoping for the best. I said Antonelli P2. And then I said Russell P3, and then I said Piastri P4, and then Norris P5. And I'm not going to elaborate on any of them because I kind of can't be bothered. I don't really know. There's no logic behind them, so there's not really anything to elaborate on.
Just pure hopium.
Not even hopium, just pure heat stroke.
Same. Honestly, same. I'm going to run through mine, but I'll give barely any elaboration because I'm feeling very much the same way. I've gone for Lewis Hamilton pole position, just momentum seemed like, I don't know, he hasn't got a pole position, but it seemed like an easy pick. I'm the only one who hasn't gone for Mercedes, so we'll see how that pans out. I'm being bold, I guess. And I was also bold with my P1 because I went for Charles Leclerc for some reason. I guess I just had visions of him winning this race. Callum looks incredibly shocked. I had visions of him winning this race.
If you want to give away points, then I'll just take them. Like you can just transfer them over to me.
Crazy, the Ferrari hopium.
I'm not a Ferrari or a Charles Leclerc fan. I'd like to see it. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes
a vision came to you in the night and was like,
well, we've seen this before from Ferrari. They get back-to-back wins, but with both drivers being different. Like 2022, we had Silverstone and Austria, might I add, where Sainz won the first race and then Charles Leclerc won the second one. They were back-to-back. And then 2024...
Sainz victory in the year of 2026?
Whoa, don't misunderstand me. I'm referencing history here, not the future. This is the past, family. Yeah, then I would be giving away points, I admit. And then in 2024, we had Charles Leclerc winning the US Grand Prix and then Sainz winning the next race in Mexico. So, Ferrari back-to-back, different drivers. That was my thinking. It's a pattern.
Leclerc's just been sandbagging this whole season, guys. Trust me.
Yeah, he's been sandbagging in the wall and everything. It's been sandbagging their budget for car development. P2, I've gone for Lando Norris. So no Mercedes in the top two. I'm just feeling like Norris is on a roll, and he loves this place. Callum, you mentioned all the years he was successful. That's pretty much every year. And 2023 was the first race where they kind of brought upgrades. That was one that you didn't mention, but he finished fourth there, I think, which felt like a miraculous result given where McLaren were that season, and then they turned up in Silverstone and did their thing and finished with a podium. So yeah, I just think Norris is going to do great. Then I've gone for the Mercedes duo of Antonelli P3 and Russell P4. Don't ask me to elaborate on those. And because I felt pretty random, I put a Gasly P5 just for like the random midfield P5 that feels obligatory at this point. So no Red Bull at their home race, but we're not.
If this happens,
If
this happens, this is race the season. It sounds like.
I mean,
yeah. I got to be honest. I zoned out after the mention of Carlos Sainz's victory, but that would also make it the race of the season.
I think you zoned out before Carlos Sainz's victory as well, because you thought I was suggesting a Carlos Sainz victory for this.
I didn't think you were suggesting it. I was engaging with it for the bit, and because I have a reputation to maintain as that one delusional Williams fan.
Yeah,
who's going to be delusional if not me? We have to make sacrifices.
Well, apparently I'm delusional for just saying what I think. So there we go. Let's move on. Let's go. Alex, again, your DNF and random prediction, please.
I'm probably going to play it kind of safe and go for like Nico Hulkenberg. I mean, he's sort of been unlucky with the fact that his point scoring and that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm going to play it safe and say like Nico Hulkenberg. And then my random prediction would be there will be a pit stop over 7 seconds.
Bro has definitely made it up on the spot.
Absolutely. Callum, let's go for yours then, which I assume you haven't made up in the spot, or you won't.
No, I've it's all planned. Spent the past few days considering this problem. So DNF, I'm going to play safe, and I'm going to go with the Cadillac. I'm going to say that these new upgrades, which we've forgot to mention, but they are apparently bringing upgrades. These upgrades are going to turn out to be downgrades, and it's going to blow up one of the cars. And I'm going to say it's going to be Sergio Perez's car because Bottas has been getting too unlucky out of the pairing of those. So yeah, it's Sergio Perez's turn to DNF. And then for my random prediction, honestly, opposite to Alex's DNF, I'm going to say that it's going to be the first Hulkenberg points, which is more a hope and a desire to see that rather than... Is
Callum allowed to do that because he did that last race?
He did do that last race, but it didn't come in. So if he just wants
I thought it was you can't make the same prediction even if it didn't happen.
Do you know what? I honestly forgot that I predicted that last time. I can switch that. Should we go? What other driver?
No, I'm fine with it. I'm just being petulant.
I'm fine with it too because Audi are just breaking down all the time, and Alex has predicted in DNF. So I think that tells you everything you need to know about what we expect from Audi.
It's up to our great podcast leader to decide.
I'm okay. I'm okay with it. Thank you. Thanks for the title, Lucy.
Can I have some 3 points?
No.
Being a sycophant where he points in the championship, I'm afraid. No.
Yeah. No, it's something I would love to see is Hulkenberg points. So we're going to go for that as the random prediction again. And then I promise I will actually change it up for next race because I completely forgot that.
Well, I mean, the irony is I feel like he's pretty likely, or not likely, but more likely maybe to get points around.
Yeah, I guess he's got podium in Silverstone. Yeah.
I know what I'm going for next week.
Look, I'm foreseeing it. It's fine.
Yeah,
Callum's seen the future, but he doesn't know what race this future happens at, so he's just going to keep predicting it because he knows.
If I keep predicting it, it will eventually happen.
Imagine if he doesn't score any points this whole season, and you've just wasted all your random predictions.
Is yours any better, Lucy?
Probably not. I've said Bortoletto to DNF. I just think Audi's car is not very reliable. I predict it to be a more normal DNF than a piece of gravel hitting the emergency off switch. I'm thinking just like a classic engine gave up moment. Or perhaps my random, it may not be random enough. I have other ideas if you need me to change it. I've said a lap 1 DNF. I've put it that way because it could be from a mechanical issue or someone driving into each other. I'm happy to specify that it's specifically from a crash rather than from a mechanical issue, if that makes it better. Or I can just go for something really different. I've got like 7 ideas that I couldn't choose between.
You know what? As curious as I am to hear the other 7 ideas, I don't feel like we've had many lap 1 DNFs from.
We had a lot of DNSs, but no lap 1 DNF.
No lap 1.
Which raises the question: if someone DNFs on the grid and we get extra formation, what does that?
Surely, but that would be a DNS. No?
Yeah. Okay. No, I'm being pedantic. But the lap 1 DNF. Are we cool with it just being any sort of DNF, or do you want me to specify that it's from like a crash?
No. That's fine. We can just allow
lovely stuff.
Being kind.
It probably won't happen anyway.
Maybe not. We'll see. I don't know why I'm being kind though, because I've gone very left field with a lot of my remaining predictions. I've said that Lewis Hamilton is going to DNF this race. I mean, I'm not being boring. You've gone for Audi and Cadillacs, but it's time. Maybe subconsciously, I just want our little predictions championship to get closer. I'm leading on 30 points, which is 6 ahead of Lucy on 24, or 3 ahead of Callum on 21. So I feel like maybe I just want that to close up a bit too much, and I'm just going a bit crazy this weekend. But he is the only driver to complete every racing lap this season, I believe. So it would be quite the story if he were to DNF, and it would be quite disappointing because of all this talk of a Hamilton championship charge. Is it on? Is he going to win a few more races? Can he take the fight to Antonelli? And for him to DNF, it would be a shame. I don't want it to happen, but I've just kind of gone up. I basically picked the least likely thing to happen, which I don't know why I've done that. But like
he's also one of only 2 drivers to have scored points in every race.
Who's the other?
Pierre Gasly.
Oh yeah, he has scored.
Even despite the Monaco shenaniganery, he only dropped down to P7, so that still applies. So that's what I'm keeping an eye on, is who's going to either DNF or finish P11 first.
I'm hoping Gasly doesn't DNF this race because I put him P5, and that'll be a shame. My random prediction is that 2 drivers from the top 4 teams won't make it into Q3, which I think is a very random prediction given that the golfing performance that we've seen from the top 4 teams to the rest this season. So once again, I picked something that's very unlikely to happen, but that's the point of the random prediction, right? So I'm just putting that one out there. And that brings us to the end of our Austrian Grand Prix preview. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining me on this very hot episode. I'm feeling quite stifled. But hopefully we can get somewhere cool now. And thank you everyone for listening. Enjoy the race on Sunday, and we will see you next week for both our Austrian Grand Prix review and then our British Grand Prix preview, because it's another double header. Now we're into the thick of the European season. Catch you then. Goodbye.